Hi and welcome back to the channel. Now, limited edition minis never came more special than the anniversary models launched by Austin Rover. This started back in 1979 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Mini with the 1100 Special, and then every subsequent 5 years they brought out another model, the 25, the 30, the 35, the 40 and so on. Now in this episode of Viewers Drives, we're going to look at this lovely example of a Mini 30 which is owned by Paul McAleer. So to mark the anniversary of 30 years of Mini production, Austin Rover introduced the Mini 30. This was a very plush, limited run of around 3,000 cars for the UK market and another small number for the overseas markets. Of the overseas market, Germany was one which received the Mini 30 in probably the most numbers. Unlike most special edition Minis that came before, the Mini 30 is actually based on the Mini Mayfair as opposed to the Mini City. Now this increased the specification of the car straight out of the box. Namely, this gave the Mini 30 its chrome bumpers, chrome door handles, the opening rear windows and a chrome grille. Now in Paul's case, he's actually replaced the grille with this Cooper version, which I think suits the car actually that little bit better and gives that a little sportiness to the whole overall spec. Now Paul bought this actually new from the Howard Abram dealership in Lurgan, and it's stood the test of time. Of the 3,000 UK cars, 2,000 of them came in this gorgeous cherry red metallic, with the other 1,000 coming in a solid black. Now both colours were given extra lacquer to really improve the depth of colour. The plastic wheel arch spats, the door mirrors and the side sill trim all were colour coded. The body was also finished off with a very special and a very unique coach line and crest. Unfortunately it's currently missing on Paul's car, but after the car gets a little bit of cosmetic upgrades in the future, this will be reapplied. I'll actually show up on screen here now just how the car would have looked as it left the factory. This is an extract from the Mini 30 brochure, just showing the two colours of the cars and their corresponding decals. As an option, a sunroof was offered, and 630s went with this option, and I'm glad to say Paul's is not one of them. Personally, I don't find that the glass sunroofs really suit the Mini, and although my dad fitted many of these to Minis and other cars throughout the years in his garage, I'm really not a fan, so sorry Dad. So the Mini 30 was the first of the limited edition Minis, and again the later mainstream Minis, to receive these 8-spoke Minilite style alloys. As if you look very closely to them as well, you'll notice that the stud is in line with the spokes, and this is a feature which you'll only see on the Mini 30s and on the later RSP Cooper, which was launched a year after the 30. The wheel stud arrangement was then relocated so that the stud was now between the spokes as opposed to in line with the spokes. Now there's many thoughts as to why this has been changed. One thought is that this was to improve the strength of the wheel, but again this is purely speculation. Actually, incidentally, the wheel isn't the only thing which found its way onto the later Coopers, but we'll come back onto that once we get around the car a little bit more. Now over the years, these wheels have deteriorated over the time, and Paul took these off for a while and replaced them with a set of 5x12 Superlights in this black. Now these were on the car for many years. I think they were running around about 2006 onto last year when Paul had the original wheels refurbished, and are actually fitted with original specification Pirelli tyres. And again, probably not very many Mini 30s will be running around with the correct spec tyres on as well. Now these are recently been reintroduced and are now available on the market. Now just while I'm on this side of the car here as well, I did mention that the Mini 30 was also a German special edition. Now in the German market, Mini 30s were offered with an optional body kit, which was the side skirts and integrated wheel arches, as well as front and rear bumpers, which were slightly different as well. Now these were not offered on the UK market at all, but just for your own interest, I'll just pop up on the screen here what the German option would have looked like. So let's see what's behind that very unique Mini 30 bonnet badge. So all looking very standard Mini Mayfair under the bonnet. There lies the 998A Plus, and in this case it's matched to the 4-speed manual gearbox, which was standard fit in the Mini 30. Although a 3-speed automatic was an option, and around 200 or 250 Mini 30s received that option. Power output was in the region of about 45 brake horsepower, and that would have propelled the Mini 30 to in around 90 miles per hour. Okay, just in opening the boot, we are just met with the usual Mini boot space with our 7.5 gallon fuel tank, and obviously the battery located there. But then again, we have that full size alloy spare, again, as you can see, all recently refurbished as well. Okay, so let's take a look inside the cabin. So just in opening the door, we are graced with this lovely interior. So I'll just take you off the camera and we'll bring you in and we'll show you what the Mini 30 offered. Okay, so on opening the door, we're graced with this very, very special interior, and for its day, it definitely was a very plush and upmarket place to be. Gone are all the vinyls and the velours of the cities and the Mayfairs, but replaced with this lovely half leather, and the cloth centres are in the lightning pattern with the black leather, and finished off with that red piping. And just check out that lovely little detail there with the little tag just bearing the 1959-89 emblem there, which matches the coach line decals and the bonnet badge. Also front and centre is this lovely red leather steering wheel, and of course the carpets are all red. Now these are the original carpets in the car. I don't believe that this actual shade is available anymore, so I think it's a lot brighter in the replacements, but glad to see that this interior is all original and looking very, very smart. As you can see, they're even coming with the rear seat belts as standard, and those dinky little speakers on the rear parcel shelf. Speaking of in-car entertainment, there was a radio as standard, although Paul has replaced the head unit with this more modern version, obviously with CD player as well. But yeah, generally all very standard Mini in here as well. Although of course, being based on the Mayfair, the Mini 30 came with the line of sight clocks, albeit this is the 3 clock binnacle with the addition of the rev counter. This again is all standard with the Mayfair, although Paul has replaced it with the Magnolia gauges, which is a sticker or a faceplate that can be added. So I mentioned previously that the RSP Cooper actually shared a lot of the little traits which were introduced with the Mini 30, and this interior is one of them. Pretty much this entire interior was carried over to the RSP Cooper, complete with a red steering wheel. Obviously the centre was replaced with a Mini Cooper Laurel. Even the seats, these were all carried over to the RSP Cooper, with the only exception being the little tag here, that this was replaced with one bearing the Cooper Laurel as well. So really you could say that the Mini 30 was the car that really started the reintroduction of the Cooper back onto the market after so many years. Okay, so just bringing you in, just giving you another alternative view of the interior, which I think, as you see, is in amazingly lovely shape for its year. Another little addition Paul has added is this little chrome rear view mirror, which I think adds to the plushness of the Mini. And again, he's added these lovely Paddy Hopkirk floor mats. Okay, so just when we're on the subject of Paddy Hopkirk, who we sadly lost last year, and Paul and myself have met Paddy on quite a number of occasions, and he was an absolute gentleman. But every time we met him, Paul had to get something signed. And as you can see here, if you can see through the reflection, he actually had Paddy sign the passenger sun visor at a show, and I think it's a lovely addition to the car. So we'll just bring Paul in now. We've done the walk around of the car, and it's just kind of interesting. You'll see in front of us here the amount of merchandise and things which were produced for the limited edition 30. Probably no other limited edition Mini with so much merchandise available for it. So we'll get Paul to go through it with us a little bit. But first of all, Paul, what got you into Minis, and why did you buy the 30?
Well, I suppose my first sort of view on the Mini was there was an Austin dealer in Banbridge, and by this stage they were no longer an Austin dealer, they were just sort of a general car sales garage by this stage, and there was a red Mini, which was a red Mini City. I think it was a City E from memory,
yes.
And I just loved the car, and I always went down on my bike to see it, and it was, after a few months I broke my dad down and he ended up buying it for me. So that was the first sort of Mini purchase. That lasted a few months and we ended up parting with that car the next summer, so that was sort of 98, 99, tail end of 98, early 99. So that Mini had came and gone, and it was always in my sort of radar to get another one. So this little car came up on Auto Trader, on the, I think, bargain buy section, if my memory serves me correctly.
That was the under
Cars below
under,
1,000
yeah.
back in the day. And it was for sale in Belfast. So again, got on the dad and we went up one Sunday and had a look at it, and right away I knew it was really the car for me. So at this stage, the car would have been coming up to its 10th birthday, so it wasn't that old. And it wasn't really actually in bad shape. Really, it was more lacquer peel was the main thing on the car at that time. And that took us to giving it a respray back in 99, which is the paint job you will see now today. So in 2023 it has stood up reasonably well. A few wee minor issues, but nothing major. 24 years I've owned it in August. I think I bought it the first week of August, should I say. So really I've had it ever since, and I've known Ian pretty much ever since. So it has been it's one of those things I don't think I'll ever part with it at this stage. I think I've had it so long, it would be rude
because
to
I think at the garage as well that you bought the Red City, and they had a delivery managed black Mini 30 as well, which
they did.
At the same time, probably the same thing you bought the City, I was really thinking about buying the black one at the time, and then I decided I bought the Traveller instead. So.
The black car that Ian is talking about there was actually in the showroom, and it still had its plastic on its seats, if my memory serves me correctly. It was really new. I actually remember going down to see the car in person, and because the owner of the then garage knew I had a Mini 30 or found out I had a Mini 30, he was very keen to let me in to see the black car to do the comparison. Really, in terms of what I've done to the car over the years, I've always tried to keep it fairly mod free, as Ian has probably alluded to in his main video. There's a few sort of enhancements like the Cooper grille, etc., but I've always tried to keep it fairly true to what the Mini 30 would have been originally.
So that brings us on to this array of small sample of what Paul set out in front of us here. So like I said, I've known Paul 20 odd years, as long as he's had this Mini, and he has always been collecting this. Probably every show we've ever gone to together, you usually came home with something else which was Mini 30 derived. And just actually an interesting story, there's a book sitting in front of Paul here that I have never been allowed to touch.
White Gloves, John.
This is a White Gloves book, so this actually has a very interesting wee story as well. So what was the story behind that one then, Paul?
I did offer to take it out of the bag, but Ian knows how precious I am about it, so it stayed in. My car has had 3 lady owners before me. The first one didn't own it for that long. She was an older lady, and she told me herself that she just felt intimidated by driving a Mini on the road and changed to something else very quickly. The second owner then had it for the majority of the 90s when she sold it to the woman that I bought it off. So the woman that I bought the car from had only had it for about 6 months, or just a wee bit more. So it just so happened that day, I can't remember whether it was Mini Magazine or Mini World. I think it might have been Mini World. The Sunday I bought this car, they just happened to have a buyer's guide for the Mini 30 in that particular month's issue. And very quickly I realised there was a book that came with the car. So a young 12-year-old Paul was straight back on the phone to the owner to say, "Do you have that book?" To which I got, "No, I don't know what the book is." So in those days you could track the owners through the old green tax book, logbook, and I was able to track down the previous 2 owners. So I'd contacted the second owner, and she didn't have any knowledge of the book either. So then that led me to the first owner. So Paul, again at 12 years old, I think I was just coming around to my 13th birthday, I think I had birthday money, contacted the first owner, and she actually lived down in Lisburn, and we arrived at her house one night, and I do remember she was a wee bit funny about letting me and my dad, or opening the door to me and my dad, because understandably she was an older lady and she wasn't sure. So I shouted through her glass, or spoke through her glass door and told her that I had her old Mini and explained why I was there. And she was, I do remember she was still a wee bit standoffish about this book and didn't, sort of acted as if she didn't know what this book was. So when I suppose a teenager was in front of you saying, I'll give you some money for it, I have my birthday money in my pocket, willing to part with it, she changed her mind all of a sudden and just said, I'll basically just wait here for a couple of seconds. And she went into her kitchen and produced this perfect, and I mean perfect book. It must never have been off the bookshelf. And when I asked her, did she need any money for it, she said, no, you can have it. Now, I did send her photographs of the car when it was finished later that year to show her the condition it was now in. So that has led me to this perfect book that was given to her back in 1989, and I've now had it as long as I've had the car, pretty much. Another, it probably leads me on to just another story that I remember from, it's a mutual friend of myself and Ian's, and it turns out that his uncle actually owned the garage where this car came from originally, and he remembers actually getting a phone call to say, Andrew, there's a Mini 30 in the showroom, do you want to come down and see it? And he actually remembers sitting in my car in the showroom back in 1989, which I thought again was a nice touch for a local car.
So yeah, so that I always find that story really amusing, actually, about tracking down this little old lady and getting the book from her. But like the things which are available for them, like mugs. We've got there's little badges here and key rings. But the amount of models, like Paul's got a selection of models here as well, and this one I suppose is probably where your most precious one is. Actually, as you can see, there's actually signed by Paddy Hopkirk, as I mentioned during the walk around of the Mini. With different shows we've been to, we've met Paddy on a number of occasions. Obviously a great son of Northern Ireland, and I was very sorry that he's now passed on, but we've a lot of great memories with Paddy, and having things like this signed is a lovely little touch to have as well. A little re-memory as well that we have for the cars. And I've got a few things signed myself, and as you see, the sun visor is signed in Paul's car, and little models like this as well is really, really lovely to have. But even right down to like Paul even has original decals, MG Rover ones. We've got here.
There's tickets from
tickets for the
from
show.
Silverstone in '89. So that was the ticket you got to go to the event. There's pamphlets that would have been available. So there's the pamphlet for the 30 years. There we also have the magazine that was produced at that time, again for the same event. I've got press packs and videos and various different things. So I suppose this dates the car slightly, the VHS. So selection of those. I've even actually got some bunting from Silverstone in '89, and to my best of my knowledge, don't know anybody else that has that.
No, never seen it myself either. And like I said, in this fantastic garage that Paul has here, it would nearly be a shame not to put it up. But I know it's such a rare item now as well that it in some ways would be a shame to even use it as well. But no, it's just amazing how much merchandise, how much literature there is available on the Mini 30, and I don't think there's any other. Well, first of all, there's no other Mini probably that has this much of a following with it, and I would be pretty sure in saying there's not too many Mini 30 owners who have this much stuff, and most of it is no longer available. If you search for Mini 30 on eBay now, none of this comes up. You might get a model, and you might get some reproduction stuff, but like this model here, I think is absolutely fantastic. Even comes with a book as well, the same as the official book, only in red rather than black. And
we were actually said we were both together the day I bought this, and it was
at Mini 45.
It was an MG event at Silverstone in
2005, yes.
And
that's where the MG BMC competition.
I don't know about everybody else, but I still think 2005 wasn't that long ago, and it's knocking on the door of 20 years ago, which is absolutely frightening. But yes, me and Ian were over at Silverstone when I got this too, which was a nice touch.
Which is actually instantly where the birthday party was held to begin with, was at Silverstone as well.
That's right.
So no, I don't think there's much more to say. It's an amazing collection. The car is class, as you know. I've always loved the 30. I mentioned on camera as well, especially in cherry red. It's one of my favourite colours on the Mini of all time, and the fact it only came in the Mini 32 makes it such a special car. So
I always thought the cherry red was that wee bit more special than the black. I think it was a wee bit more standout, and I think if you ask the majority of people, their choice, my biased opinion obviously, would be cherry red.
well, 2/3 of them came in cherry red anyway, as well, which just proves how popular the red was. But no, well, thanks very much, Paul, for sharing all this. It's fantastic, and I didn't realize you had as much.
Neither did I.
So yeah, thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Paul very much for letting us have a walk around of his Mini 30. I've always had a fondness for these little cars, especially in the cherry red, and I really feel that the cherry red actually was probably one of the best colours ever to be put on a Mini, and it is so nice to see one being maintained and being preserved as original as possible. Paul has just ignored the urge that we all have to customise our Minis and just to keep his car original, which is great to see. Now, I've known Paul for a very, very long time, and he's had this car, as you know, from a very long time as well, and it's just great to see it being so well cared for. So there's nothing else left to say, but thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the very next episode of Viewers Drives, where we have another very, very special Mini coming. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.